In the summer of 1944, the fields of Normandy witnessed a transformation in the nature of warfare. On August 7th, at precisely 1,300 hours, SS Obersturmbannführer Wilhelm Thyssen, commanding the remnants of the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich, led a column of 43 tanks westward near Mortain. Unbeknownst to him, high above at 10,000 feet, 6 squadrons of RAF Hawker Typhoons circled like vultures. Squadron leader Dennis Crowley Milling was already calling in coordinates. Within minutes, the skies would erupt with fire. This German armored column stretched nearly 2 kilometers along the D-177 road. Panthers and Mark V Panzers intermixed with half-tracks, fuel trucks, and field ambulances. The German High Command had assured Thyssen that the Luftwaffe will provide air cover for Operation Lüttich, a desperate counteroffensive intended to split the advancing Allied forces. But no Luftwaffe fighters were in sight. Only the ominous shadows of the dreaded J-bows circling above. The Germans had no idea that what was about to happen would become a defining moment in modern warfare. Suddenly, the first pair of Typhoons broke formation, diving into their attack run. Flight Lieutenant John Gailey of 245 Squadron pushed his control stick forward and nosed his aircraft into a 40-degree dive. At over 400 miles per hour, he lined up the lead Panther in his gun sight and released a salvo of 4 RP-3 rockets. The rockets screamed downward at 850 feet per second. One struck Thyssen's command tank, lifting the 25-ton turret into the air like a child's toy and killing the crew instantly. Another hit a nearby ammunition truck, triggering a thunderous explosion that sent debris flying hundreds of meters in every direction. The attack was surgical, sudden, and devastating. Within 10 minutes, 6 squadrons of Typhoons had fired more than 200 rockets, destroying 17 tanks, over 20 other vehicles, and killing more than 200 men. But more than the physical destruction, the psychological effect was catastrophic. German crews, trained for tank duels and infantry assaults, had no defense against rockets from the sky. Many simply abandoned their vehicles and fled into fields as smoke and flames engulfed the column in total chaos. The RP-3 rocket had been engineered specifically for this role, a 60-pound semi-armor-piercing warhead capable of punching through up to 7 inches of armor or flipping a Panther on its side with a near miss. Mounted in salvos of 8, the Typhoon's firepower rivaled that of a destroyer's broadside. While accuracy was limited, the sheer shock and blast radius made it terrifyingly effective, especially against soft-skinned vehicles and exposed infantry. Pilots trained for months to hit tank-sized targets, and while direct hits were rare, the cumulative effect was undeniable and demoralizing. Over the days that followed, the RAF's cab rank system, continuous overhead patrols waiting for targets, meant the German columns could never move without risking annihilation. As American and Canadian forces advanced toward Falaise, encircling the German 7th Army, the Typhoons flew up to 4 missions per day, launching what became known as the Great Shoot. German escape routes were turned into charred graveyards of metal, horses, and men. The smell of burning oil and flesh lingered for weeks, seared into the memories of all who fought there. For those on the ground, it felt less like a battlefield and more like an industrial slaughterhouse without end. Veterans of the Waffen-SS later described the Typhoon attacks as the most terrifying experience of the war. Hardened tank crews cried as they watched comrades burn alive inside their armored coffins. They knew their once mighty panzers were helpless. Anti-aircraft guns couldn't elevate fast enough, and German fighters were virtually absent from the battlefield. Morale collapsed. Some troops refused to move in daylight. Others froze at the sound of aircraft engines, a condition dubbed Jaboneurosis. Even experienced officers admitted that German tactics were powerless against this new form of warfare. The devastation was so complete that Field Marshal von Kluge reported the attack had halted the German advance entirely, while Hitler, isolated in his bunker, raged at the Luftwaffe's failure. Yet the truth was undeniable. Allied air power had rendered traditional armored tactics obsolete. German commanders like General Hans von Funk and Walter Model admitted they could no longer move or fight effectively. Movement during daylight became suicide. Supply lines were cut, reinforcements delayed, and every attempt at regrouping exposed a sudden annihilation from above. When the Falaise Pocket finally closed on August 21st, more than 50,000 German troops were trapped. The roads were choked with burning wrecks and the corpses of men and animals. Bulldozers had to clear paths through the carnage. The smell of death lingered for days. Yet post-war analysis revealed a surprising truth. Only about 7% of German tanks were confirmed destroyed by air attack. But that statistic missed the broader picture. Most tanks have been abandoned, operations canceled, and logistics collapsed because of fear of air strikes and constant exposure to airborne threat. What the rocket-firing Typhoon accomplished was more than destruction. It paralyzed the enemy. It disrupted supply lines, broke communications, and shattered morale. The simple, unguided RP-3 rocket, adapted from a naval anti-aircraft design, proved that psychological dominance could be as decisive as firepower. German tank crews who once saw themselves as invincible now hid in fear, unable to fight back, while Allied forces advanced with growing momentum. Their belief in the invulnerability of the Panzer was destroyed, shattered not by tanks, but by thunder from the sky. By the end of August, the Panzer divisions that had stormed into Normandy with over 2,000 tanks had fewer than 200 left. The once proud Wehrmacht was in full retreat, leaving behind their machines, their dead, and their hopes of victory. Allied air superiority, and particularly the Typhoon squadrons of the RAF, had turned the tide, not by destroying everything in sight, but by making it impossible for the Germans to fight at all. Their dreams of a counteroffensive had quite literally gone up in smoke. The Battle of Normandy wasn't just won on the beaches or in the hedgerows. It was won in the skies, where pilots like Gailey and Scott delivered thunder from above with precision and fury. The RP-3 rocket and the Typhoon became symbols of this new era in warfare, where ground forces no longer dictated the pace of battle alone. From that point forward, any army that failed to control the skies would find itself, like the Panzers in Normandy, deadly exposed, outmaneuvered, and ultimately defeated, without mercy.